right, lovies, let's take a look at what cross-text connections are. Cross-text. Yeah, say that 20 times fast. All right, basically, we're going to be given two passages, and really the questions want us to see how do these two passages connect with each other. So we're going to be looking for what's the relationship between the two texts. Do they agree? Does one support the other? Are they contrary? Do they complement each other? We're going to want to summarize each text. What was the purpose of each of the passages? Then we're going to make sure that the evidence matches the question. And finally, we're going to make sure that the answer includes both texts. Just like for the quantitative ones with the graphs, we wanted to make sure it related to the graph. Here, our answers have to match both of the texts. See you soon. All right, lovies, here we go. What are we doing today? Based on the texts, what would author 2 most likely say about the positive outcomes described in 1? So what is 2 going to say about 1? Let's take a look. The following passages are adapted from educational research in 2021. Text 1. In classrooms where students can choose their own reading materials, engagement often rises. Students report feeling more motivated when they read novels or articles that genuinely interest them, and many teachers notice improvements in daily participation. Several studies suggest that this sense of ownership leads to greater persistence, especially among students who typically avoid reading assignments. Because choice connects reading to students' personal interests, it has become widely recommended strategy in schools. So before reading text 2, I'm going to be thinking in my head, this research likes to let kids choose which books they want to read because it makes them read more. Summary, just like when you're taking the test, read the prompt, read the first text, and summarize it in your head in like one sentence before moving on. Other researchers, however, we love our however, other researchers, however, note that student choice can introduce challenges. Most students naturally gravitate toward texts that feel comfortable, selecting books below their reading level and choosing familiar genres again and again. This tendency may limit growth in vocabulary and comprehension. Without careful guidance, teacher guidance, some students may read frequently, but fail to make the kind of gains expected by more challenging material. So they're basically saying, all right, if kids get to pick the content, they're going to be reading, what was it, Captain Underpants over and over and not increasing their vocabulary had they read Call of the Wild, right? So the first person's like, let them read whatever they want because at least they're reading. The second person's like, yeah, they're reading, but are they understanding good comprehension? Are they gaining vocabulary skills? So what would that person say about 1? They prove that student choice is the best way to promote literacy. Well, I don't think that person would be saying that because they're like, wait, student choice, they're not getting any better. They are limited because students may avoid difficult reading. That's probably true, right? But let's keep reading. They suggest that teachers should no longer assign specific books. That goes back to supporting the first claim that let them read whatever they want. So that can't be it. They confirm that interest is more important than skill. So B is the correct answer. Notice if they asked what was text 1 about, then A would be relate to text 1, C kind of relates to text 1, and D kind of relates to text 1. But we want to know what is 2 think of 1, and that's why it's important to do the critical piece. All right. Here we're going to say what difference in perspective is shown between the two texts. So we got to make sure both texts are in our reading. The following passages are adapted from environmental studies. Urban tree planting programs are often praised for their environmental benefits, urban city. Large canopies can reduce heat absorbed by pavement, lower air conditioning use, and improve overall air quality. Studies show that shaded neighborhoods can be several degrees cooler during peak summer months. For residents of cities where heat waves are increasingly common, such cooling effects can make a significant difference in public health. All right, So basically, this text one is saying cities should plant more trees because it's better for cooling the area and decreasing heating or cooling costs, things like that. All right, let's see what the next text says. While these benefits are real, some experts caution that they are not without the cost. Trees require years of maintenance, including pruning, watering, and treatment for pests. Municipal governments must allocate budgets for crews and equipment, and in some cases, trees interfere with power lines or sidewalks. Advocates argue for planting trees, but they acknowledge that the success depends on the cities in investing in long-term care. So, what's the difference? One is like, we need them. Two is like, yeah, we might need them, but there's an ongoing cost to having trees. Text one emphasizes the benefit of trees, yes. And text two stresses the responsibility, yes. But that might not be the best choice. So, because we want to see, we're comparing perspectives. So, we're not just stating the two, we're comparing. Text one argues that cities should reduce tree planting, while text two argues that they should expand it. No, that's the opposite. Text one focuses on temperature control. No, while text two focuses on noise pollution. No. Text one highlights tree roots, while text two, no. So one is the best answer. One talks about the benefits, two talks about the responsibilities. All right, let's move to the next question. What are we looking for here? What would the authors agree on? All right, so the first question was, what does two say about one? The second question we had says, what's contrary? What are the two about? The third question is, how do they agree? Okay, so these are the types of questions you'll be getting. So it says the painter, that's from Art Criticism. The painter George Seurat is remembered for pioneering pointillism, a method in which thousands of small dots create an image. His careful placement of color produced scenes that appeared precise and controlled. Critics of his time described the work as highly methodical, even mechanical, because each dot seemed planned in advance. For many of Seurat's art represented a scientific approach to painting rather than an emotional one. All right, let's see what the next one says. Although Seurat's technique appeared rigid, viewers often responded to the unexpected vitality of his canvases. The interplay of countless dots produced shimmering effects of light and motion that felt almost alive. Far from being static, his work seemed to shift as people moved closer or farther away. This dynamic suggests that his pointillism, though methodical, resulted in a vibrant, engaging style. So text one is like, he was very scientific and precise in putting the dots. And you should see his artwork. It's phenomenal and really curious at the same time. And step two is like, yeah, he might have been methodical when he did his dots and his points, but the effect was amazing. There had to have been artistic design. So what would be the best answer? Seurat's style depended on the use of thousands of dots. Well, I think both of them would agree that that's true. Let's keep reading. Seurat's painting lacked energy and appeared static. Maybe one might say that, but two would definitely not say it. So they wouldn't agree on that. So that's not true. Seurat was less skilled than other painters in their era. Neither one of them mentioned painters at all. So no, Seurat's technique was rooted in abstract expressionism. Well, preciseness in dots is not really abstract. So one is the best answer. See you soon.